In Tananarive, capital of Madagascar, the past has had to make room for modern trade and commerce. There is little to distinguish this city from scores of others in neighboring Africa. Two-wheeled carts and four-wheeled automobiles are equally at home. 20th century office buildings have become a familiar sight and no longer seem out of place, while the old and traditional still persist, often in the very shadow of the new. The marketplace has not adopted modern merchandising, but its size has increased to keep pace with the needs of a growing city. Here, the fruit of the land is brought within the reach of the town's people. To the south of Tananarive, there have been fewer changes. Fort Dauphin, headquarters of the Evangelical Lutheran Mission in Madagascar, is a smaller city. The open country about it looks much as it did centuries ago. The pace of living is slower. Most of the people live on the land, and their ways are the ways of their fathers. Rice is one of the island's principal products. Here in the south, it grows in abundance. Planted and cultivated without benefit of machinery, the stalks of ripened grain are threshed in the traditional fashion. The husks are removed from the rice kernels by a method that still is used the world around, then separated by the graceful process of winnowing by hand. It is Sunday in southern Madagascar, in the village of Ishalu, and the sound of the ansiba is heard. Jafeta is calling the people to morning service. Is it possible that some do not want to hear? Sound the call again, Jafeta. Let the summons to worship ring throughout the land. Know ye that the Lord, He is God. Enter into His gates with thanksgiving, and into His courts with praise. Be thankful unto Him, and bless His name. They have mouths, but they speak not. Eyes have they, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Light is come into the world, yet men love darkness rather than light. The people can hear your call, Jafeta, but many choose not to listen. Jafeta has tried to open their minds and hearts to the truth. He wonders now if all the labor shall come to nothing. And his mind turns back along the road that brought him here, back to his days as a young herd boy of Ishalu. Like many boys of the Tandrui tribe, Jafeta tended cattle for others. To a young Malagasy man, it was time to get started on a herd of his own. His pay after one full year of hard work in the sun and rain, 1 cow. Jafeta remembered the year of his 20th birthday. He had already selected his year's prize, which he tended with care. One day he decided that this should be his last year as a herd boy. Now he would have not only his own herd, but his own fields. For as long as he could remember, he had helped prepare rice fields for planting. There was no plow. Cattle were used to cultivate the marshy land. The system was laborious and slow, but it was effective. A Malagasy farmer is as much a servant to his cattle as he is a master. First the oxen are washed, then the herd boy can bathe. And Jafeta, at the end of his 20th year, made up his mind to find for himself a better life. He turned his steps toward home, with the prized possession of every Malagasy man. When Jafeta arrived home, a memorial service was in progress. His father had died up north in a mica mine. Jafeta's lips were sealed in sorrow. Neighbors were attracted to the service from all around, not so much to mourn for the departed nor to comfort the bereaved, as to enjoy the dancers hired for the occasion, and to gorge themselves with meat and drink. For the dead man's oxen, including Jafeta's newly earned, this was the law from the past. This was the heathen inheritance. Among the Tandruis, the spirits of a man's cattle must accompany him, for he dare come empty-handed before his ancestors. And a house of stone is built so that his spirit may have a resting place. When he took over his father's land, he had hoped to find time for schooling and study. He had heard of the Christian Bible teacher in a nearby town who could teach him. But the days were full of labor. Occasionally, the villages of the area turned out for the wrestling matches. Work and worry were forgotten. Musicians enlivened the proceedings with familiar tunes that gave the celebration a festive atmosphere. This was a holiday, for ringa is the national sport. Wrestlers of one village challenged those of another. Jafeta himself made the challenge on several occasions. The sport has its evils. Each of the winners from the victorious village may ask for any girl from the defeated town. When there is no Christian message, the sins of the past persist. When the last challenger had been defeated and the last match had been won, the chief of the village was given a prize Malagasy spear as a token of victory. Jafeta knew there was more to life for himself and his people than tending cattle and ringa. He had married a young girl of the village, but he found himself without goal or purpose. Behind his silent lips lay a deep but unexpressed desire. He was determined to find a suitable job which would permit him to go to school and better himself. Others had written to a certain French company and been hired for manual labor at good wages. Jafeta would have to have someone else write his letter, and for this service he would have to pay. So the letter was written by one of the two men of the village who could read and write. As the words were spelled out on the paper, Jafeta envisioned the day when he too would be able to put his thoughts into writing. Many days went by before Jafeta received an answer. As was the custom, the letter reached his house through the help of villagers who were passing by. His young wife was home to receive it. But neither he nor his wife could tell whether the news was good or bad, for neither of them could read. Someone else wanted the letter read too, but Jafeta offered a larger payment. The French company had no work for Jafeta. Jafeta returned to his land with a heavy heart. His wife knew his disappointment. but no word passed between them. She had just begun to prepare the evening meal when Jafeta returned from the fields. He was feeling ill and complaining of a fever. His wife recognized it as a recurrence of malaria. Then Jafeta had a vision, and in his vision he saw the witch doctor of Ishalu come to make his magic, and to place his magic ointment on his head. And he sat upon Jafeta's chest, and behold, Jafeta saw a figure all in white enter the room, and take the evil hand from his throat. And the figure knelt by Jafeta, and upon his burning tongue he placed drops of living water, and Jafeta was refreshed. And when Jafeta awoke from his sleep, the fever was gone, and he asked for food. This was the turning point in Jafeta's life. On the following day, he and his wife set out for the nearest mission station and school. There at Manambaru, they found the pastor. Jafeta explained that he wanted to be trained in full-time service for God, the living God. The pastor asked them to wait, then returned with a letter of introduction to the teacher of the preparatory school. At the school, Jafeta could begin the education required of catechists, evangelists, and Bible teachers, if he were admitted. He waited anxiously for the verdict. The teacher said he was too late. School was almost over for the year. So Jafeta pleaded with him, and he told the story of his vision. His unusual story and request were laid before the missionary for his opinion. The missionary was so moved by Jafeta's urgency that he questioned him to learn of his aptitude and sincerity. And Jafeta proved himself to be a man of understanding. He and his wife were permitted to enroll. Jafeta's first task was to learn to read. The school at Manambaru used a wonderful primer. The title in Malagasy, Fanalahidem Bakateni, meant the key to reading. It was a key that had opened many doors for others. Now it would open doors for Jafeta. Not in a dramatic way like his earlier vision, but in quiet study, it was revealed to Jafeta that Christ died on a cross for him. The lips of Jafeta were being released for the Lord. Only the power of a living word could work such a conversion. His training was begun and would be completed in the care of the church. Whenever there were difficult passages or questions that remained unanswered in his mind, he turned to his teacher for help. After 3 years of preparation at Manambaru, Jafeta moved on to the Bible school at Fort Dauphin. There, in the daily singing class, he learned to give expression to the song in his heart. He learned to sing by solfa, the following of syllables rather than notes. In chapel service, he came to love the hymns of the church. My mouth shall praise thee with joyful lips. Teach me, O Lord, the way of thy statutes, and I shall keep it unto the end. Give me understanding, and I shall keep thy law. Make me to go in the path of thy commandments, for therein do I delight. Jafeta and his wife lived in one of the houses provided for students and their families. Already hundreds of young Malagasy men and women had been trained at the Bible school for Christian service. His education was well-rounded. In addition to important instruction in Bible and Christian life, there were courses in fields such as geography, arithmetic, French. Studies which at first were difficult became a challenge and a pleasure, and always there was help and guidance. Jafeta's wife attended daily sewing class, improving her practical skills for their future work together. She and the other women were instructed also in the Christian faith, learning how best to become partners with their husbands in winning their people to Christ. There was time for play and recreation, and there was time for work beyond the classroom, for the students of the Bible school helped maintain the buildings and grounds. Each Sunday, Jafeta and his wife attended services. There they gained a foretaste of the Christian fellowship they would someday help establish in one of the many villages of the land. At last, the day of Jafeta's graduation had come and gone. After 3 years at the Bible school, he was about to fulfill his first assignment under the Malagasy Lutheran Church Conference. He was returning with his wife to their home village of Ishalu, there to bring the gospel to their old neighbors and friends. It was with high expectations that they came back to their own village, and with great humility and thanks to God, they opened the doors of the church. It is Sunday in the village of Ishalu, and the sound of the ansiva has called the people to service. Awake, Jafeta, for they do hear the summons. Welcome them into his house. They shall enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations. Jafeta has drunk of the living water, the word of Jesus his Lord, and the lips of Jafeta shall bring the word of life to his people.